Hello and welcome. We often think that moving to a new country is all about finding happiness somewhere else. But what if I told you that for migrants, happiness isn't something you find, it's something you have to actively build? It's about so much more than just changing your address, it's about learning a whole new way to live, and more importantly, to thrive. So, let's get into how that actually works.
First, I want you to meet Pedro. See, he and his wife weren't running away from a bad life in Portugal. Not at all. They were running towards something, a change, a new chapter. And his story really gets to the heart of why so many people start over in a new place. It's not always about what you're leaving behind, it's about what you're hoping to build.
You see, every migrant is kind of living in two worlds at once. First, there's the world you imagined in your head, all the dreams and hopes that got you on that plane. But then there's the reality you find on the ground when you arrive. And let me tell you, the biggest challenge of all is trying to build a bridge between those two worlds.
Let's break that challenge down. On one hand, you have your internal world, your quality of life. This is all the personal stuff, your values, your culture, your traditions, your dreams. But on the other hand, you have the external world, this standard of living. That's the city you live in, the economy, the local laws, the public services. The real secret to happiness is figuring out how to get these two very different worlds to align.
And Pedro just nails it with this metaphor. He says moving to a new country is like walking into a garden that's filled with fruit, all these amazing opportunities. But to get to the really good fruit, the ones that are just out of your reach, well, you can't just stand there and wish for it. You need tools. So what on earth are these tools?
So let's talk about these tools. The biggest one, the most important one, is simply understanding. It's all about how we make sense of a brand new and often confusing environment. And it isn't something that happens overnight. No, it's more like a ladder you have to climb, one step at a time. This is what's called the human understanding hierarchy. It all starts at the very bottom with raw data. Think of street signs you can't read, names you don't recognize, bus numbers that mean nothing to you. Then you take a step up to information. Now that data has some context. You know what that sign means or who that person is. But the top of the ladder, that's the goal, knowledge.
And this is why knowledge is the ultimate tool. Knowledge is where you take everything you've just learned and you turn it into a real, actual plan. It's what answers the single most important question for any migrant. Okay, but how do I do this? How do I get a job here? How do I find a place to live? How do I actually build a life?
And that brings us to the core solution from our source material. It's a super practical, 4-step framework that's designed to help migrants build that very knowledge and, in the end, build happiness. It's called the ARIA model. So ARIA stands for Assimilation, Regulation, Integration, and Adaptation. The easiest way to think about it is like a roadmap. First, you gather the basic facts. Then, you organize them into a clear plan. Next, you take action and become a part of the community. And finally, you find a way to make your personal life work in harmony with your new reality.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning with step 1, assimilation. This is the foundation for everything that comes after. It's all about the conscious act of just observing, collecting, and soaking in the raw data of your new world.
Assimilation is you, on the ground, purposefully learning. You're memorizing street names, you're figuring out the subway map, you're trying to understand what the heck those signs in the government office are trying to say. It's the process of taking those big, vague dreams you showed up with and starting to see how they could become actual concrete goals based on the real information that's all around you. Pedro's story shows us exactly why this step is so critical. He flat out admits he was naive when he first arrived. He had these huge dreams, but he had zero useful information. And without that basic data that comes from assimilation, he had no clue how to turn his hopes into a real plan. Which leads us perfectly into step number 2, regulation. So you've gone out and gathered all of this information. Now you have to actually make sense of it. Regulation is where you basically become your own project manager. This is the sorting phase. You can almost picture it like creating folders in your mind, one for housing, one for getting a job, one for your kids' education. And for each of those goals, you start hunting down the answers to those how do I questions. You're building a step-by-step plan, turning a chaotic mess of information into a clear, actionable strategy. Nancy's story is just a perfect example of regulation in action. Her goal was clear: get a banking job in Canada. She did her research, she regulated the information, and she figured out that a specific 9-month college course was the most direct path.
She made a plan and she executed it. She didn't just hope for a job, she built a road plan to get one.
Okay, on to step 3, integration. You've got your data, you've got your plan. Now comes the part where you put it all into action and start to really, truly connect with your new home.
Integration is all about active participation. It's about learning the language not just from a textbook, but by actually talking to people. It's taking classes, volunteering for a cause you care about, making friends, and building a professional network. This is the step where you stop being an observer and you become a real participant in your new society. I mean, just look at Edward's journey. He went from feeling like a total outsider to feeling like he truly belonged. And how did he do it? He took action. He signed up for an English class, then he got into a university program, and through those actions, he didn't just get a degree, he built a community. He found his place.
And finally, we get to the fourth and, maybe the deepest step of all, adaptation. This is the moment where your internal world, your personal values, finally meets the external world of your new home.
Now, this is so important. Adaptation does not mean erasing who you are or abandoning your culture. Not at all. It's about managing your culture and your personal values so they can actually thrive inside your new reality. It's that final delicate process of aligning your internal quality of life with the external standard of living.
We can see this kind of successful adaptation so clearly in Sephora's story. Her core personal value, the whole reason she migrated, was a desire for social order and mutual respect. And what she found was that this deeply held value aligned perfectly with the standards in her new home in Canada. Her internal world and her external reality were in perfect harmony, and for her, that was happiness. So, after all these stories and this whole framework, what's the one big idea we should walk away with?
It's this, right here. Happiness isn't some random accident of migration. It is the direct result of a conscious process. It's achieved by people who learn how to successfully adapt their personal criteria, who they are at their core, to fit the standard of living in their new country. It's a skill, and it's a skill that you can learn.
Which brings us right back to Pedro's beautiful idea of the garden. The opportunities that fruit, it's there for everyone. The real question is, what tools of assimilation, of regulation, of integration and adaptation are you going to build to help you reach it? What will you learn and how will you grow?